This is a text. This is a teaching on. This is a teaching on how death is not a deliverance unto God, rather a separation from God. Be it God is living, death is not as God is. It is the opposite. Death is non-existence. If God is existence, all existence, not saying you are God, but saying that the being that makes you alive is not of your own creation. You did not choose to be born. You are not of a previous process that failed, so you had to restart. There's no reincarnation. That's stupid. It's stupid to think that you forgot who you were. You didn't exist, so how could you remember who you were? How can you remember who you were before you were born of a terrestrial human if you did not exist before him? You have no memories. You don't have to try to struggle to be that person or figure out who that person was. They didn't exist. Just like when a loved one dies, when anyone dies, they do not exist. They are not around to create memories because they are not part of these memories. They are actually the loss in the memory. They are the part in the memory where you can be like, well, I'm glad they were alive. Even that is past tense. It's looking back. It's history. It's over. It's done with. Honestly, guys, we're looking forward to a vivified Christ, a living being who exemplifies that God kills in order to make alive. He doesn't kill just to say, ha, I have the power to kill. He kills so that he can make alive, to say, ha, I've got you all alive. Now what? Good things, good happenings, good vibration, good understanding, good love, good fellowship, good being. There's grace to be had now. And it's an understanding that even unto the point of death, we will be made alive. Christ did not exist for 3 days. He didn't go become God for 3 days. Christ, the firstborn of all creation, became the firstborn from among the dead. The dead do not live. The dead know nothing. The dead are not with us. They do not exist. Having a body that is dead sit there is not a living person gone. That's not a living person gone. That person doesn't exist. The body is not alive. There's no life to it. There's no personality to it. It doesn't speak. A dead body may convulse after death, maybe even release their bowels, but they are not alive. Death is not life. And the separation that the other people that proclaim the name of Christ when they don't even know who he is, I need to park here. The problem with these people of the religious caste, of the bondage system, is that they do not recognize that Christ totally did not exist. They think that Christ went down to hell, or he went into he went and did something for 3 days. No, Christ did not exist. It wasn't possible for him to do anything at all. God stopped animating Christ. God removed the life force, the spirit that is his spirit. It was Christ's spirit, and then he died and gave up God's spirit back to God. There was a misconception in the body for a while among the YouTubers that for some reason people thought that there was more than one spirit. No, it's all one spirit. God does evil and good. He creates light and dark. He kills and makes alive. We don't cherry pick that verse to say go do whatever you want because God's going to inevitably be responsible. There is fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, and so on. It's Galatians 13. There's these things that are a product of being alive unto God. And only He does this. Like, I'm not a good example of mortal life. But the immortal... Not, you can't even say immortal. When we are made immortal, the vivified state we will be in, the state beyond the reach of death, that is when the Spirit really takes over. The fruits of the Spirit are no longer just what Paul told us they were. Because there are people in the body of Christ who, you guys listening, you can recognize in your daily life, you are not always loving and joyous and peaceful and patient and kind and gentle and all these things that are the fruit of the Spirit, because the flesh battles the Spirit constantly. It's terrible, but it's what we have to go through, so we're kept low. God doesn't give us up to those highs of the world any longer. He might do it in spurts just to be like, is that really what you think you want? Like, and it's not like, oh, I have to stop sinning in order to be this person. No, it's literally God is subjecting all. So if He's subjecting those that think they're sinning, the religious folk, and He subjects us who thinks we're under complete grace, believes we are under absolute 100% covering of grace, which is no doing of our own, 100% of God through Christ. Christ's faith is sufficient, and God makes us to be believers of Christ's faith. That's how stupid simple this message is. That Christ is the firstborn of all creation. All creation came through Christ. Christ was subjected to become a terrestrial man. He was born a baby. He took on flesh in the form of a servant, not as a conqueror that everyone expected. He conquered flesh, and He conquered sin, and He conquered the law. And He did it perfectly, as God wanted Him to. Because Christ was always looking up to see His Father. Even if He was looking down, literally, in the spiritual sense, Christ always saw His Father. Right before He died, Christ as a man, as a being, as the Son of God, cried out, asking why God may have forsaken Him. And I don't know exactly how He said it. I'd like to go look up the actual text of what He literally said. I just know that He really thought that God was leaving Him, and Christ knew that He was giving up His Spirit, and He knew that God was His very breath. He knew that God gave Him His very breath. The air in our lungs, how do we explain that we're alive because of that? In our diaphragm, in our body, the oxygen running through our bloodstreams. How do we explain that makes us alive? If it was just oxygen, we'd die. Pure oxygen kills us. Humans need O2. It's incredible how God does these little things that make us go, we don't know why we need these things, but we know we need these things. And then we go in the science and we go down rabbit trails, and we come out of it going, we're alive because of it. Well, let's go with that. So keep going, guys. Don't have to worry about the science. You don't have to get history perfect. You don't have to stop trying to not repeat history. If good things happen because God does good things, don't worry about trying to have a routine of good things happening in your life. I have no routine in my life when it comes to expecting anything good. I love Rebecca. Her and I quarrel over things that I go, what are we fighting about? And she goes, what are we fighting about? And we just have to talk about it. We just have to get through it. We just have to explain it. It's understanding. It's realizing I love you even though there's things that divide us. And people don't believe what we believe. People do not appreciate that God is doing all things and will become all in all. make everyone alive, make everyone joyful and pure and alive beyond the reach of death. No blemish, no wrinkle. As he is, God will make all humans as Christ is, which is the way we will be just a little bit sooner than everyone else. And it blows me away that God does this, such a simple thing, and creates such a dynamic hierarchical I don't know what a word would be. The word for just the hierarchy we have now is kind of like this in the world, where it's like, oh well, it's extreme. The hierarchy God's gonna do is he's gonna flip it and spin it and twist it around. It's gonna be straight up and down. It's gonna be God, Christ, his body, Israel, the nations. Those that blaspheme God will be down here. But they'll think that they're up here, and they're going to literally be on the teeter-totter at the bottom end. Well, Satan and his minions are at the bottom tail end of the eons. It's amazing. It's amazing how God structures his love to be known by all, even his adversary, even those who oppose God, without even knowing there is a God. It's an ignorance that is bliss, because we don't have to sit around with people and argue with them about God. You go to religious institutions, that's all they do. They argue about God. They don't come to fruition except about lies, the deceptions, hell, free will, eternity, annihilationism. The cult that they are is terrible, but people have to go through it in order to sometimes have a nasty enough contrast. And how we experience that is through the love of people. And it all comes down to what God is doing through each of us. And that's why when our words are grace, and we say, hey man, I'm gonna fuck up, but I still have grace for you and me because God has it for all of us, people won't believe it. Mercy is similar to grace, but mercy is overall. Grace is over all that are aware of it. Well, what if I didn't believe and now I believe? Did I have grace over me when I didn't believe? I don't know. God might have. I think God has you where he needs you, and I think that it's because he has unveiled something to you that he unveiled to Paul. Paul is the first member of the body of Christ, our apostle. Once Saul became Paul. He thought he was a perfecter of law and a Hebrew of Hebrews. He was an asshole. He was willing to kill for what he believed in. I don't think we're willing to kill for what we believe, but I think we're willing to die for what we believe. But we don't have to worry about that because we know Christ already accomplished everything. And that is what separates us from religious folk and the world and all of humanity as God's ecclesia, is he separates us, calls us out. We're still all looking through a glass dimly lit, but what we do is we keep looking. We rest, we look, we eat, we poop, we pee, we play games, we do crafts, we learn skills, we work, we have our livelihood because God gives it to us. Don't squander expecting every fucking moment to be the snatching away. Have an expectation. It's ingrained in you. It's the Spirit in you. How do you explain the Spirit doing what it does with the people around you? You can't even explain what your thoughts are. We all battle the flesh because we are of terrestrial elements now. And once this is gone, we are, I don't know, maybe of celestial elements or spiritual elements. God will make us to be who we are truly purposed to be, in contrast to dirt. We will stand on solid dirt, that it was our bodies. We're going to be transformed. I don't know if it's going to, the body will return to the dirt. The body will be transformed into new elements. I don't know. Like a pressure of sand and to make diamonds. I don't get it. or glass, pressure of rocks, heat, force, cooling, all of that. It's incredible. And God knows the perfect degree to do everything, that we would all understand that He is who He says He is. His Christ is the perfect image of Him, so that we would know who He is, and that we would be exemplary beings for grace and love and peace and joy. And I'm learning that through the people I love the most, learning to be those things with myself, because there's tough things in this life that divide us, and I do not want to be divided, especially from the ones I love. We can all think a little bit differently, but if we stop loving each other, then it's just like, it's not what I don't think any of us want. So having grace for yourself is crucial. Having grace for the understanding you have, or the lack of understanding you have, and vice versa with other people. Whether it's scriptural stuff, whether it's life stuff, whether it's anything. No matter what it is, God has it all taken care of. There is a resolve to it. We may not come to that resolve in this eon, in this life, but we all will be resurrected to understand God is God. Death is death. It's the absence of spirit. It's not life. And what we are is crucial. Even if God makes us to not exist. Like we have brethren that do not exist, like Paul. Paul does not exist. Timothy does not exist. I'm talking boys. So what we do is we continue in grace and love and peace as God wills us to be. If you're tired of hearing me say that, just know it's true. You know it's true. That's probably why you're tired of hearing it, because you're like, Seth, rap alone, sing that song. I've done that in other videos. It's such a good song. Alright, my phone's gonna die. Love you guys. Stay cruise. We're gonna cook some Nashville chicken and some macaroni and cheese. Peace.